Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Karen Moore. I am the founder of I Am the Color of Beautiful Global, where we are focusing on redefining the standard of beauty for Black women and women of color. I'm also the founder of International I Am the Color of Beautiful Day, where we celebrate all Black women and women of color in all of our different shades and hues. I Am the Color of Beautiful. Our mission is to help dark-skinned, what we like to call deeply melanated, women of color to move beyond the hurt and trauma of colorism. So for International I Am the Color of Beautiful Day, we celebrate us in all of our different shades and hues. And internationally, because colorism is a global issue, so we're looking to do this on an international level so that women all over the world in countries of color will begin to celebrate our beauty and embrace it and tap into what I like to call our beauty power. So I want to welcome you here today. Thank you so much for coming here. We are doing International I Am the Color of Beautiful Day here in Atlanta in partnership with the historic Apex Museum, which my uncle founded, Dan Moore Sr. So we are really excited to be here and to do this in partnership with the Apex Museum. So I'm going to ask that you please silence all devices and no audio or video recording. We are going to get started and enjoy the film, and then we're going to have we have an amazing panel who's going to come back and talk about the film, and we're going to have a conversation on colorism, and then be able to have some questions and answers. And for those of you who are here joining us, if you have anything that you'd like to share about your experience, or if you have a question or anything like that, we would love for you to be able to ask it at that time. We are filming, and so we do ask again that there be no audio or video recording. There's a couple of things I want to say before we get started. One of the things for this movie was that it was important for me to be able to also address the issues that many light-skinned women face. And I came to that understanding. What you saw at the end was a stage production that I do called Poetic Blues, A Sister Story. And so when I was doing that, and I would do brown skin blues, my sister, who's light-skinned, who actually did Too Dark to Be White, Too Light to Be Black, told me that light-skinned women have blues too. And I said, since when? Like, really, since when do light-skinned women have blues? But after having conversation, I came to understand that light-skinned women also face issues when it comes to dealing with colorism and some of the residual effects of colorism, and how many times they experience the other side of it, in the sense that I know many light-skinned women have told me about being bullied also because of their light skin, and having to deal with different issues also because of light skin. So I wanted to make sure that we did, even though colorism is about the discrimination and preference, the preferential treatment of light skin over dark skin, I did also want to address the issue that it does affect light-skinned women and men also. So here with me today, I have the very beautiful Marie Antoinette. If you want to just introduce yourself and tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, my name is Marie Antoinette. I'm Marie Antoinette. I am a fashion stylist, creative director, and I did a film called Melanin on colorism, and it's also a coffee table book. So I just like to do all things creative and tie it into a purpose. So this was right up, first of all, it was amazing. Great job.
Thank you.
So this was right up my alley to be a part of this event.
Great. And Conrad Moore?
My name is Conrad Moore. I am glad to be here. The documentary really was amazing. Thank you so much for doing that. I am an anti-racism educator, organizer, and I've been doing that for almost 30 years. And I also am a peace educator with a focus on identity-based conflict.
Great, we're looking forward to hearing from both of you today. So the first thing I want to do is talk about, we talked about in the film with Willie Lynch about how we got to this place of having the whole issue of colorism among those of us who are of African descent, especially here, for here in this country, for those of us who are of African descent, how this came about. And it talked about the Willie Lynch letter and the idea of separating us and bringing in that separation to continue to keep us separated as a people. So what I want to ask both of you is, so we know how we got here. So can you give us some kind of idea of why you think we're still here in this situation where we still are dealing with this issue of colorism in our communities, as well as other communities of color? Give us some kind of idea of why you think we are still in this place dealing with colorism.
Sure.
I think it's a level still of brainwashing there. So, and there's still this undercurrent of value on light skin. And everything is visual. So if you see in music videos, if you see in movies, and you see that the beautiful, soft person is fair, that's the connection you keep making in your mind. It's over and over and over again. Mm-hmm. So, to me, that's why it keeps going. Until we can visually, over and over again, see something different, just like we over and over again see value placed on lighter skin being deemed beautiful, etc., etc. Until we see that enough in the opposite direction, I think it'll continue to be the same.
Mm-hmm. Right, correct.
We are still living with the results of, remember if y'all saw the movie Black Panther, and the white guy was about to introduce himself, and she said, "I know who you are, colonizer." Right? That was my favorite part of the movie. It was my favorite part of the movie. Colonialism was not a joke. It was not a game. So we are still living with the remnants of colonialism and the identities that have been imposed on us by the colonizer, even in the idea of calling ourselves black. And so the division is it is identity-based conflict, right? So it's for us, it's not divide and conquer, but it's divide and rule. It's how do you rule those you've already conquered? And so that's what the Willie Lynch letter was trying to make those people understand. You've already conquered these people. How do you rule them now? Then you create division. And that was just one of the ways that created division. And the reason it's still going on is it is embedded in our cultural DNA. And so, as you said just a moment ago, it will be embedded in our cultural DNA until we name it and not expect it to go away without us actively naming it, talking about it, and going deeper to seek our healing from it. Because the internalized oppression of light-skinned or too dark-skinned, all of that is oppressive. So it's a form of oppression that we mete out on each other. So even if white people were just out of the equation, if white people were out of the equation, we have enough between us to keep the oppression going.
I was going to say too, I think too, not only brainwashing, but it's a level of self-hate.
Oh, absolutely.
Because what I will say, if my memory serves me correct, I had a ton of experience on colorism, but it was always the darker skinned male that had something to say.
Come on.
Darker than me.
Come on.
But my complexion was the issue, so it's like, it didn't make sense. Now, older, I realize it's self-hate, but it's like, you're so bothered by my complexion and you're darker than me.
Right, so. Right. And one of the things too, I think that we want to talk about is the hurt that comes with colorism and the hurt that comes with feeling like you're not beautiful. Because I think most women want to feel like they're beautiful. I'm the Color of Beautiful really deals a lot with the beauty and the female part of this whole issue, though we do acknowledge too that men also experience colorism. They do. Tyrese Gibson talked about it. He talked about how, and the women go crazy over him, but he talked about how he never felt like he was good looking until he started coming to Hollywood and modeling and the women going crazy. But growing up, he never felt like he was good looking. And so I want to talk a little bit about the hurt that comes with that and the hurt that is happening within our communities, so that when we understand about hurt, and one of the things I know that has always been an issue, is the angry black woman, and especially if you are darker complected. You know, if you say something or you get a little emotional, you are now the angry black woman. And we talk about a lot of times, I was telling people that for many of us, not just darker skinned women, black women, but especially darker skinned women, that there's a whole, I call it decompression thing we have to do. Because if we get upset, we have to think about, okay, and are they going to carry me out of here, okay, because I raised my voice, or I got a little, I'm upset now. So we have all this decompression that has to take place to remain in a place of, I don't want to be carried out of here, or I don't want anybody to be threatened by me. So that hurt that comes with feeling like you're not beautiful, feeling like you're not enough, feeling like you have to go through all of this decompression to really to have a voice. So I want you to talk a little bit about that hurt that comes with feeling like a darker skinned black woman, and the things that you had to deal with, and the hurt that comes along with all the things you have to go through just to have a voice.
So initially I had a hard time articulating my point, and it was during my project I feel like I came to terms of how to articulate it. I used to think, why is there a similarity with me feeling like I have to be strong and my complexion? Like, what does me being strong have to do with my complexion? But it was there. It was and someone said it in the film. It was there, and I'm like, what is that? And I feel like I realized, because darker skin seemed masculine. So then, like women can be, or whoever you date, a lot of times, like women and men. Women can be attracted to a dark, handsome man. And a lighter man is considered soft, right? So the darker skin is more masculine. So that works for a man if he's darker skinned, because now he's strong, he can support his family. But when you're a darker woman, that I feel like that's why I had this thing in my head with being strong or being treated like, or toughen up. You can do it. No space for vulnerability. So that was the part that was hurtful, you know, just growing up like, I can't express myself because you're gonna seem aggressive, because you're, and to me, because it's just like when the police is more scared of a black man. They're so threatened by a big, dark man because he seemed aggressive and all these other things. And so when that's a woman, we don't have that space, I feel like, at the time. I didn't have that space to be soft and vulnerable, you know, so that's my experience with that.
I know you're not a woman, but you want to you want to give us your perspective as a man? I think it'd be interesting to hear your perspective as a man.
I actually know some women.
Do you?
Right. Yeah, we got women in my life who are very important to me, and we've gone through, you know, you have colorism within your families. You spoke to that, and the documentary spoke to that as well. My younger sister, well, not my youngest sister, but my younger sister, right below me, Paula, when we were kids, you know, I really didn't notice that Paula was so much darker than anybody else, but Paula always got all of this black stuff, you know, and my dad would say stuff like, well, you know, the blacker the berry, the sweeter the juice. Remember that? But then the second part was, but when you get that black, they ain't no use. So there's a compliment and a slap, you know, at the same time. But one of the challenges for me as an African American man is making sure that I let the women in my life know, whatever their complexion are, is the idea of being angry about these systems of oppression is expected. If we believe that we are created and we believe that we have a creator, every emotion that the creator gave us, that emotion is there for a reason. And so there are things that anger is the appropriate emotion. So black women have some stuff, and I was about to say some other word other than stuff, but black women have reason to be angry. So black women, whether you light skinned or whether you heavy melanin, you don't be apologetic when you are angry, because anger is the appropriate emotion for a lot of stuff, especially oppression. So not only do our women have to deal with white men and white folk, they have to deal with us and the misogyny that they get from black men as well. So yes, black women have a reason to be angry. So that's my thoughts about that.
So true. Really, so true, very well. And I think that anger is the appropriate response in a lot of circumstances, and we've got to get to the point where we feel comfortable with our anger and get comfortable feeling that we can express our anger, and sometimes maybe even not really being all that concerned with whether or not you feel threatened. Because some things, I mean, especially when it comes to our children, when it comes to our families, there are certain things, they tell you, don't mess with a black woman's child, because then you're going to have a problem. So, when it comes to certain things, that anger is definitely the appropriate response, that the issue becomes being comfortable, being angry, and understanding that many things we do have a right to be angry when it comes to certain things. So the last thing I'll ask you before we take some questions is, and I think we've kind of maybe touched on it, but where do we go from here? Where do you think that we can go from here and begin to continue to address colorism, continue to be able to come together and understand that we are all beautiful? Just some ideas about where do we go from here. One of the things that I think is very important, and why I do this with the screenings and the discussions, is because I think it takes conversation. I was sharing with Marie Antoinette that I'm a baby boomer. So all this digital stuff, and I love technology. I love technology. I consider myself to be pretty tech savvy, but a lot of times it's void of conversation. We're not having the kind of conversations that we used to have, and we need to have conversation if we're going to overcome a lot of these issues that we have. And I was sharing with Marie Antoinette that, if I text you and ask you, are you okay? And you text me back, I haven't heard your voice, I haven't seen your face, and if I know you well enough, I can tell from your voice that no, you're not okay. I can tell when I look at you that no, you're not okay. So I think we've gotten so involved with the phones and the digital realm that we aren't connecting anymore as much humanly and having conversations, the conversations that are going to get us to the place where we overcome some of these issues. So give us some idea of where do we need to go? Where do you think we need to go from here in addressing colorism and the issues that we're having in our communities?
Well, for me, because my first experiences with colorism was in the home as a child, middle school, whatever. That's why I did a coffee table book. So to start to reprogram kids' mind. Because they're visual, they're seeing what's on TV. So that's why I started there. I feel like because it may not be nothing we can do with grown folks, just like with racism. You have the 80, 90-year-old little white lady in the nursing home, she's gonna be racist to the day she dies. There's nothing you can do. So we can try to educate. Hopefully that works, but for me, I feel like my mission is to get them younger, because that's where my first experiences was, home, young, and in school. So just starting there, making people aware of what colorism is, what it means, letting them know where all the different communities. I've had conversations with people from India and Asia. It's the same. Right. It's the same. I can speak more on, because I'm black, I can talk about this, but it's the same. The skin bleaching is crazy over there because it's a value on lighter skin. So for me, I want to get to the children and try to make that change. Let them see their value in their skin. If they're darker or light, it doesn't matter. But just having those conversations young, so as they get older, hopefully we can combat this.
Yeah, and I know I did a virtual screening, and we had a conversation afterwards, and one of the young women that was there lives in Kentucky. She's a teacher in Kentucky, and she said she has all shades of dolls in her room, and this was 5-year-olds. And she said there was only the dark-skinned doll was the doll that was left, and the little girl that got the dark skin doll threw it across the room and said, "That's the ugly doll." So still, we're dealing with it at a very young age. Also, young children are coming up believing that dark skin is not beautiful. And I think about the video from many, many years ago. Some of you may remember about the girls with the dolls. When they asked the little girl, which was the pretty doll and which was the ugly doll. The pretty doll was the white doll. The ugly doll was the black doll. So we're still dealing with that even now. Our 5-year-olds are under the impression that dark skin is not beautiful. That's the ugly doll. So we do have to address it for all ages. I think too, I say all the time that as far as the family is concerned, we have to be willing to call it out in the family. I shared with someone who asked a question about that in one of the things that I was doing, and she said, well, what about if it's in your family? I said, have a family meeting. You meet for everything else. Have a family meeting and say, we have a colorism problem, and we need to talk about it, and we need to address it. And I even say, in all due respect, Grandma, we don't talk like that anymore. You have to be respectful. I came up, you have to be respectful. But Grandma, we don't talk like that anymore. We don't say monkey and blackie and some of these other terms that we use. We have to tell Grandma, we don't talk like that anymore. And impress upon all of our elders, as well as those that are under us, that these things are hurtful and they're harmful. And we have to stop bleeding on ourselves, bleeding on our children, and bleeding on our grandchildren, and get to the healing.
I totally agree with everything that you both said. Because you're doing a great job of naming the problem, right? And so that's like the first step. Naming the problem, and then figuring out what you need to do to solve the problem. But if we're not at least naming the problem, it'll never go away. And it is in our cultural DNA. And I agree with you that it's our responsibility in our homes to make our children understand what colorism is, and make them understand that they are beautiful creations of God, whatever their level of melanin is, right? And the deeper issue also is to make our children understand what role colorism plays in perpetuating white dominance. That's a whole nother subject. But because we have so much animosity, and we have this form of oppression within our own community called colorism, we don't. White people literally don't have to do anything to keep the oppression happening in our communities, right? So until we name the problem and get serious about educating, get serious about that educating piece with the work that you're doing and with the work that you're doing, get serious about that educating piece, it is going to remain in our cultural DNA. And nothing is going to change that other than deliberate naming the problem and be about the process of doing the education.
Yeah, it's interesting when you say about naming it. I was talking with an Asian woman who was doing a review of my website for me, and she asked me what colorism was. And so I told her what it was, and she said, my parents always told me to stay out of the sun. I didn't know it had a name. So it is the idea of also naming it and knowing what the name is. And she said, yeah, my parents always told me, don't go out in the sun, don't get dark. I didn't know it had a name. So we do have to name it and begin to talk about it in our families, as well as in schools and in other places where our children are in church. Yes, in church, because it happens in church. It has happened in church. Part of the whole paper bag test started with church. If you were darker than a paper bag, there were some churches you could not go into, some clubs you could not be a part of if you were darker than a paper bag. The paper bag test and the comb test and some of these other tests they call them, But yeah, there was that whole issue, and it is, like we say, it is a global issue. It affects other communities of color as well. I had the opportunity to talk to a woman in India and another woman that was in India. And the young woman who was in India I talked with, who was living in France, she was saying that when she was younger, her parents were always, stay out of the sun. And I know I came up that way, kind of, not my parents, but I stayed out of the sun because of my skin color, and I went to the doctor and she said, your vitamin D is in the toilet. Are you not out in the sun? And I said, no, look at me. What do I need to be in the sun for? But that was because I had this idea of I didn't want to be any darker than I already was until I got to the point where I accepted that I am incredibly beautiful. Yes, I am. So does anybody have any questions or any comments at this time? We'll take some questions or comments if anyone wants to share.
I experienced colorism myself. I have two brothers, one older, one younger. My mother, they were all darker. They are all darker skinned. And I used to tan on purpose with my friends so that I could be darker because I was darker. I was lighter and I was heavy. So I definitely was told that I would be prettier or whatever. And it was funny because my brother, my younger brother, who was very dark comparatively to the family, he had so many issues that he used to try the bleaching, and I heard about the soaps, and I'm like, oh my God, you're gorgeous. What are you talking about? Don't change anything. And I remember we helped each other. He told me that my brown was beautiful. I told him that his black was beautiful.
Right. Yeah, skin bleaching is also, that's another issue that comes with just wanting to be lighter. And we can't get that many statistics here in the United States, I think, because people don't admit to it too much in the United States about bleaching. But one of the conversations that I had with a young woman who was light-skinned also said she used to go to tanning salons because she wanted to be darker. She felt she would be more accepted if she was darker. So she was actually going to tanning salons to darken her skin.
Did you just get emotional?
I did.
Why? Like, where do you think that is?
I know why I got emotional. He passed away in September of last year.
I'm sorry to hear that.
But I remember us sharing that, and it just...
Yeah.
But then also having to go through that and outside of the house being looked at and having certain people tell you you're beautiful and others telling you you are either too dark or too light, and why does your family look like that, and why do you look like that, and you must be an outcast. So I really stood out as far as in my family.
Let me say before we go further, are you all right being filmed? Because we don't have to film you if you're not, are you okay with that?
I am.
Okay. I just want to make sure everybody's, because usually we don't do filming during this part because I want people to feel safe to talk. But if you're okay, everybody's okay with being filmed? Okay. All right. Anybody else? Who else would like to share? Yes, ma'am.
First, I just want to say that I enjoyed the film because I could relate to so many of the stories that the ladies were sharing. Some of them were sharing my personal stories, But I was interested in the location of the film where you were shooting because I was interested in the sculpture behind the women. Could you share about that?
I'm sorry, I missed that.
That was a mural behind the women.
Oh.
They were sharing their story, and I kept trying to get a glimpse of what that was. I was just curious about it.
I'm from Philadelphia, so that was actually the Patriots of African Descent Memorial in Valley Forge National Park in Pennsylvania. So I'm going to guess everybody knows about Valley Forge. And don't get me into a whole lot of history, but Valley Forge, where George Washington and all those people were. But so when I was doing the film, I wanted to film somewhere that had real significance for African history. And so that was the Patriots of African Descent, the Africans who fought with George Washington in Valley Forge.
I knew there was a story behind it.
Yes. Thank you. Anyone? Come on, sweetie. Oh, look at you with your beautiful self. Oh my goodness, look at you. Did I embarrass you? I'm sorry. Look at you with your beautiful self.
People still in school still call others monkeys. And it's like 90% of kids and adults, they do nothing about it. They just ignore it and say, kids be kids.
Yeah, So they call people names at your school? And the school does nothing about it? So tell me, how do you feel about your beautiful self? How do you feel about your skin? If you want to tell me, you don't have to. I'm just curious.
I mean, I still believe that I'm a beautiful person.
Yes, you're gorgeous.
Absolutely. I mean, just stunning you are. So I think that if you yourself feel beautiful and you feel that if you feel comfortable enough within yourself to tell your fellow classmates how beautiful they are, or to even say to them, you know, let's not make fun of people. It's not nice because we're all beautiful. So you can begin to be a spokesperson if you want. I mean, you know, you have to, if you feel comfortable enough. And if you don't, then I would say let a parent or someone know that that's going on at the school and that they need to address it. And that Marie Antoinette is here in Georgia, and tell them, you know, maybe they need to have Marie come in and do a class or do a workshop or something for the school on colorism. So we're going to make sure that you get Marie's information, and Marie can come. I'm volunteering Marie as we speak. I'm volunteering Marie since she's here in Georgia. And maybe that's something that needs to be taking place in our schools. Yeah. That we need to begin to go into the schools.
I actually was scheduled, we're getting everything situated to go to a school in Florida because my friend's daughter just had been extremely bullied about her complexion, and I emailed the principal. And so it's like, okay, so let's time to educate. And so we're getting that situated, and I'm gonna show the film, and we're gonna talk about it and go from there. So.
Awesome. I have something for you in that bag. I am the color of beautiful bracelet. Can you give this beauty a bracelet, please? It's probably a little too big for her arm, but that's okay. Yes, down in there are I am the color of beautiful bracelet. And make sure she comes. Thank you so much for talking with us. And you are beautiful. Oh my gosh, absolutely beautiful. Is that Mom?
Yes,
All right, you beautiful too, Mom.
she got it from her mama. Hi, my name is Zayda. I'm originally from West Africa, Sierra Leone to be exact. And when it comes to colorism, I think it starts at home. I grew up in a country where there are a variety of colors, and of course, like the ministers or the presidents, their wives were always like yellow, they call them. They were like, oh my gosh, she's so gorgeous, she's yellow. And so there was bleaching and other things, but I feel like for me, I have never felt less beautiful because of my skin color. I think I had Ebony magazines, I had Naomi Campbell, I had Iman, and I had Tyra Banks and all those people, and I wanted to grow up to be a model, and I didn't see that they were light skinned. They were all authentically black, and I felt like, wow, they're gorgeous, and I felt gorgeous myself. So I think it starts at home. And I tell my daughter all the time that she's beautiful. I don't talk about her skin color. I think you can be beautiful without even thinking about if you're white, black, or anything. It starts how you feel on the inside, and you exude that on the outside. So for people, because I remember one time I went somewhere, I met some other Africans, and they were like, how long have you been here? I was like, I've been here since 97, and they're like, congratulations. And I was like, why? Like, you didn't bleach your skin. And I'm like, why am I getting congratulated for that? But he said there were so many people that came, and now that they can afford it, they can go to Walmart, they can go to different stores, and it's available. Now they feel like they can bleach their skin. But for me, I've never felt less beautiful because of my skin. I actually think my skin makes me beautiful.
Hey, I wanted to remind us that we live kind of in a trap where we've been trapped into into believing that much of our identity, and that's what we're talking about here, we're talking about identity, that much of our identity is wrapped up in the idea of being black, whether it's light-skinned black, but our identity is tied up in the idea of being black. And this sister from Sierra Leone just reminded me of something that when our ancestors came here, when our ancestors were kidnapped and held hostage and brought here as hostages, when they were kidnapped, they were not black. When they were kidnapped, they were Zulu, they were Igbo, they were Fulani. When our ancestors were captured and brought here, they were not black, right? And they wouldn't even recognize the identity of black. So what we've done is we've allowed the colonizer to impose an identity on us, and we've wrapped it up. We've wrapped it up into our own intrinsic value, so that our worth, our own self-worth, winds up getting wrapped up in whether I'm light-skinned or whether I'm dark-skinned, right? And so our identities are shaped by all of this negative stuff. All of that to say, we are not simply black. And so the value for us as people of African descent is to go beyond being simply black. Whether it's light skin or whether it's heavy melanin, go beyond being simply black. That means do some DNA, do a DNA test, figure out where your ancestors were from in Africa, go back to find out what your tribal identity may be, because there are DNA tests that you can take. But there is individual intrinsic value in becoming more than black. Thank you.
Awesome. Oh, yes, ma'am.
Thanks for letting me say all that.
Yes.
My name is Tamora Anderson, and I'm a veteran teacher at the Atlanta Public Schools. And I want to say that, just to back up what you said about we need to do more research, we are so ignorant.
Yep.
We are ignorant as a population in the United States of America, and we allow, they want us to stay ignorant, but we allow it to carry on. So when I was younger, we were raised in the 60s, Black Power movement, the divestation of Americans fueled by blacks brought an end to the Colorism in South Africa, and it significantly caused the downfall of the white supremacy in South Africa. People don't really pay attention to that, but that's the era that I was raised in. But my parents always taught us that a monkey skin is white. You shave the hair off and you have white skin underneath. And so, there were no stigmas in my family, my community about light and dark, except for the fact that we had to identify as Africans because we knew the Europeans were not going to accept us, okay? And yes, I am light-skinned, most of my family was, but my immediate family, but our family was all colors, and we knew why. Because the Europeans had inserted their DNA in our family line, and that's the way we looked at it. We didn't look at it in terms of carrying on the oppression, because this one is lighter and this one is darker. Now, those psychological problems they didn't escape us 100%, but we supported that connection with Africa so that it was not an asset in my family to be light-skinned, because that meant we were closer to the enemy that we had to fight against. So we need to remember to support our light-skinned children as well. We supported the dark ones very well in my family, but I think we need to also remember that like you said, the color of our skin does not determine a whole lot about us. Because in one family, same parents, same mother, same father, you have children that come out with different hues. So how do you explain that? I mean, you love them, that's it. So I sat on my phone and I looked up to see if my parents had raised me with the truth. And I Googled what color is the skin of a monkey, what color is the skin of an ape, and I'm gonna let you do that, see what comes up, and see if they're telling the truth.
Okay.
pigmentation long before I was born. And the reason she lost her pigmentation is because she had 5 little stair-step children, and her husband died young, and she didn't lose her mind, but the pigmentation thing came, a Michael Jackson thing back then. So they didn't know how to get it back. But anyway, I had a sister, like Karen, who was light-skinned, and I was dark. But my grandmother didn't read into that in any way. She told us we were sisters and we loved one another no matter what. And as the summer came when I was very young, I couldn't wait to tan because I liked dark-skinned boys and then dark-skinned men, and so I married a wonderful dark-skinned man. But anyway,
Yes, he was.
Putting that on the side is, it happens like with this young lady. What you're taught as a child brings out everything that happens in your life. So I'm just black and proud.
All right. Does anyone else have anything or want to share anything? No? Okay, well, we're going to do a couple of things before we get ready to go. I'm going to give Marie Antoinette an opportunity to let you know how you can follow her, what she's doing, and all of that. And then we're going to give Conrad an opportunity to do that. And then we have a special young lady that we're going to hear from who's doing some amazing, amazing things. I shared with her mother that I feel like I'm her auntie, and because I'm so proud of her. But we're going to start with Marie Antoinette. Just what are you up to? What's happening? We know she has a book and a fashion show coming up, and so just tell us everything.
Yeah, so my melanin book can be found at melanin929.com. I actually have a couple copies with me today, and you can follow me on social media at Marie Antoinette 929. And right now I'm working on like my third or fourth fashion show. It's called Sapphire Diamonds, and I normally try to mix art with a cause. So like melanin, that cause was on colorism, and this one is for sexual assault, sexual awareness. The month of April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month. And so I'm partnering with a nonprofit organization to raise funds for them. And my line is a graffiti line that expresses things on sexual assault and sexual prevention and awareness. And so that's it.
Okay, awesome. Sir?
You can find me on, I'm almost 70 years old. So let me say that before I give y'all some lie about social media. You probably not gonna find me on social media. But you can find me at Roots of Justice, rootsofjusticetraining.org, where there's a wonderful young person who takes care of all the social media stuff. So you can find me there. You can find out more about anti-racism educating and organizing. And I am starting as a tour guide at the Apex as well, where I am, my focus is on helping people who come through that museum begin to question who told you you were black? Who told you you were no longer Fulani? Who told you you were no longer Igbo, no longer Zulu, but simply black, right? So who told you? And what does that mean for you right now? What does that mean for the changes that you need to make in your life right now? So you can see me in person at the Apex. You can find me on social media at rootsofjusticetraining.org.
Okay. Conrad is my cousin, and he forgot to say that he's also a fashion designer. I am wearing Njima artwear. Yes. Njima artwear, and we are having a fashion show at 6 o'clock at the Apex Museum. We still have some tickets available. If you would like to come over to the fashion show, the tickets are just $40. You can pay at the door for our International I Am the Color of Beautiful Day fashion show, where you will see some Njima artwear. So we're going to have the beautiful, now wait a minute, I have to remember which sister this is. Aaliyah, Amani. This is Amani? This is Aaliyah. Aunties get it mixed up sometimes, especially when they get old. Come, my beautiful. This is Aaliyah Hampton, and she's going to tell you about some of the amazing things she does. Now, if you come over to the fashion show also, you will hear this beautiful young lady play the harp. She is going to be playing the harp during intermission for our International I Am the Color of Beautiful Day. An amazing harpist, and she's going to tell you about her book.
Hi, my name is Aaliyah Hampton, and I'm an author, a writer, an artist, and I wrote the book The Obituary of Amina Vargas, which is a supernatural fiction. It's about these 4 cousins that get together to investigate the death of their late cousin Amina, who died 10 years before them. Well, 10 years later. So they go to her house, they go to her old house, and they encounter these like monsters and ghosts that help them actually discover what really happened to their cousin, because the police never found out what happened to her. And at the end of the book, they finally find out who and what happened, like who killed her and what happened to her. And I spent a lot of time on this book, so I think you guys should read it.
You want to say something, Mom?
I was going to say, what about your 100 book challenge?
So the day that I published it, I wanted to sell at least 100 books in 100 days. So that ends actually on my birthday. So I want to sell 100 books before my birthday. And right now I'm at 23.
When's your birthday?
June 25th.
Okay.
And it's Amazon?
Okay, so where did we get the book, did you say?
It's on Amazon. It's called The Obituary of Amina Vargas. So if you search that up, it should be the first one.
How much is it?
Amina Vargas.
How much?
It's $15.
And there's a QR code right outside the door.
So
Oh, there's flyers outside?
Mhm.
Okay, so there's flyers outside. So how many people we have in here? How close can we get her to our 100?
Right here.
Okay. Can we get her to her 100?
Yes.
Can you spread the word? Yes. Young person doing wonderful things. Something else? Is that it? Or you got something else?
what did you say?
How old are you?
I'm 15.
Writing book.
Me and my sister, we actually sell jewelry together. We sell bracelets, and we're thinking about making necklaces and anklets too. But for now, we're selling bracelets. We're actually set up at the Apex. We have our stand.
Yes, we have bracelets. So I think you can go across to the Apex. If you don't want to stay for the fashion show, I think you can go across to the Apex Museum, right across the way there, and we do have some vendors. Her mother has an amazing line of hair care products that she makes herself. Yetunde Jude, Yelani is a line, so you can go across to the Apex and check out the vendors if you don't want to stay for the fashion show. We are so honored to again have the Apex Museum be a partner with us for this International I Am the Color of Beautiful Day. So we are so grateful to the library here and to the Apex Museum for helping to make this event possible. And we're so grateful for you all coming. You can follow The Color of Beautiful. Color is spelled C-O-L-O-U-R because you are beautiful. The Color of Beautiful on Facebook. Our website is thecolorofbeautiful.black. And I think you guys got cards for our upcoming launch for our Melanin Poppin' Beauties community. And if you are not going to stay for the fashion show, please come and see me. I have some I Am the Color of Beautiful bracelets. If you're a man and you don't want to wear the bracelet, if you have a woman or a daughter in your life, we'll give you a bracelet. Okay? Thank you all so much for coming. We really appreciate you, and have an amazing, amazing rest of your day.